long will you sleep in the lap of the witch called Maya? You have forgotten the way of devotional service and are lost in the world of birth and death. I have descended just to save you. Other than myself, you have no friend in this world. I have brought the medicine that will wipe out the disease of illusion from which you are suffering. Take this Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, I fall at the Lord's feet, having taken this Maha Mantra. It's one of the first songs by Srila Bhaktivinoda. It's 38 in this book. I think it's 37 or something, that one. Otherwise, you'll have to look in the index. Hare Krishna. It's a big one. Yeah. Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago, Gaura Chanda Bole, Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago, Gaura Chanda Bole, Kota Nija Jayo Maya Pisa Chira Kone Kota Nija Jayo Maya Pisa Chira Kone Bajibo Tolia Ese Samsara Bitore Bhaji Palia Ese Samsara Bitore Bulia Ro Ile to me Agujara Pare Bulia Rohile to me, Agejara Pare, Tomare Loite Ami, Ainava Tara, Tomare Loite Ami, Ainava Tara, Ami Dina Madhu Ara, Cheton Mara, Ami Dina Madhu Ara, Cheton Mara, Hey Deshi Oshodi Maya Nashibaro Lagi Hey Deshi Oshodi Maya Nashibaro Lagi Harinama Mahamantra Lao to me Magi Hari Nama Mahamantra Lao to me Magi Bhakta Divinoda Prabhu Charane Iya Bhakta Divinoda Prabhu Charane Iya Jai Hari Nama Mantra Loi Loma Iya Jai Hari Nama Mantra Loi Loma Iya Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Jaya Nitai my Purchandra Nitai my Purchandra my Purchandra Nitai my Purchandra Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki. We'll continue our reading from Second Avenue, Miracle on Second Avenue by His Holiness Mukundadas Goswami. This chapter is titled Celebrations with the Swami. Today is Janmashtami, the birth of Lord Krishna, the Swami said on Thursday morning. This day is important for all devotees of Krishna. In India, Janmashtami is like Christmas in the West. The 25 people present for the morning program glanced at each other in anticipation. I had no idea that today was the equivalent of Christmas in India, and judging by the looks of the others, they hadn't known either. To celebrate Janmashtami, the Swami continued, devotees dedicate the whole day to Krishna. We will have kirtan all day. Kirtan sometimes means chanting with instruments, sometimes speaking, sometimes reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Kirtan means glorifying the Lord. So all of this is kirtan. So we will sing for half an hour, Hare Krishna. Then I shall speak half an hour, and then we will all chant on beads half an hour. In this way we continue whole day. Also we shall fast whole day up until midnight. And at midnight we can eat. In this way we will minimize our bodily needs so we have more time for kirtan. Quote, I suddenly felt apprehensive. It was only 7 o'clock in the morning. I didn't know if I could do that, I whispered to Jan. That's almost 18 hours a day. I'm going to have to eat something today. You can't. He said we have to fast all day. I don't care. I'm eating. And so the day began. The Swami gave a lecture about the significance of the day. So these days come upon us, just like tomorrow. Tomorrow is Gaurapanima, the appearance day of Lord Chaitanya, which actually should be even more of a festival than Janmashtami, because Lord Chaitanya is the most merciful incarnation of the Lord. But, of course, the devotees know beforehand. Here, Mukunda Prabhu and the other persons, the 25 other people, had no idea that morning that it was Janmashtami, it was Krishna's appearance day. And they had no idea what the activities would be for that day. But we know tomorrow is Gaurapanima. So we can prepare ourselves, we can make a sankalpa. Sankalpa means a vow. We can make a vow that we will follow very strictly the program for glorifying Lord Chaitanya. So that takes some willpower. We have to have the will, thinking, feeling, willing. We have to have the will in order to perform the austerity. Of course, Lord Chaitanya is also very merciful because we don't have to fast till midnight. We only have to fast till moonrise. Moonrise? So we can prepare ourselves in that way. Otherwise, if we can set even a goal, even if the goal cannot be all day nirjal fasting, still one can make a vow to just drink fluids or just to have some fruit, and in that way minimize the bodily necessities so that one can at least chant more rounds, attend more of the temple functions, and in that way fix one's mind on the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so the day began. The Swami gave a lecture about the significance of the day. And this is the main fact. Devotee was even saying in Mayapur that nobody in India, even practically nobody knows Lord Chaitanya, what to say in the Western world. So the Lord Chaitanya, it was his purpose to be a Chana avatar, a covered incarnation. But the devotees recognize that he is the Supreme Personality of God. So it's our duty to spread the glories, spread knowledge, spread information about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Existing. You can still visit there today. Of his maternal uncle, Kamsa. Kamsa had imprisoned Krishna's mother and father because their child was prophesied to kill him. Quote, God's birth in this world is not like our birth. No. As long as we are in this material world, we must cycle through all the various species of life according to our karma. So Krishna's birth is not like that. Krishna does not require mother and father to appear. He is within your heart. He is everywhere, so he can appear from everywhere. Just like the sun rises from the eastern side, it does not mean that eastern side is the mother of sun. We simply see that sun is rising from the eastern side. So Krishna appears within this material world due to his kindness to his devotees. Nobody is real father and mother of Krishna because Krishna is the original father of everyone. But when Krishna comes here, advents, he accepts some devotees as his father, as his mother. So why does Krishna advent? In Bhagavad Gita, he tells Arjuna, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. My dear Arjuna, I come when there is a discrepancy in the processes of religion. What process of religion does Krishna recommend? Simply surrender unto him. Krishna advanced to teach us this lesson. You are immortal by nature. As spirit soul, you are part and parcel of me. I am also immortal. So you are immortal, but you are unnecessarily trying to be happy in this material world. Krishna is the original person. We should try to understand him, why he advents, why he comes to this material world. What is his business? What are his activities? If we try to understand him, then what is the result? The result is that we will achieve liberation from this material world. That is the aim of this life. After the Swami's class, we chanted with instruments, then listened to the Swami again, then chanted on our beads. The time passed quickly, but by noon I was getting restless. So Mars is being very straightforward and open about his consciousness at that time. My legs hurt, I complained to Jan. I've been sitting cross-legged for 5 hours now. Then get up, she said. I stood up at the back of the room and listened to the Swami speak. He had been talking about Krishna, but about 12:30 p.m. he started to talk about his own guru. I heard him talk only very briefly about his spiritual master before, and I'd never heard how he had met him. Quote, in 1874, my spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, was born, the Swami said. And then in 1918, my Guru Maharaj started with his mission. He called it Gaudiya Mat, and he was trying to spread it. I was taken to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati by one of my friends. I did not want to go there, but he forcibly took me there. Yes. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati ordered me, quote, you preach the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in English language. This is very much essential. So in the first meeting, he told me like that. At that time, I was in favor of Gandhi's movement. So I said that, quote, we are not independent, we are subjugated. Who will hear about our message? But he refuted my argument. Quote, this so-called nationalism, he said, be any ism, they're all temporary. Real need is the self-realization. So I was convinced, but at that time, although he wanted me to immediately join him and spread this movement, at that time, I was a married man, a young man. I was married in 1918. And I also had a son, also at that time. 1921, I met my Guru Maharaj in 1922. That time I was a manager in a big chemical factory. So I thought that I'm a married man. I have so many responsibilities. How can I join immediately? It is not my duty. Of course, that was my mistake. I should have joined immediately. I should have taken the opportunity immediately. Then in 1954, when I was 58 years, I left home and I was living alone. Then that year, I accepted the renounced order, sannyas, and decided to take up the responsibility of my Guru Maharaj. Then, when I was 70 years old, I decided, quote, now I must do and execute the order of my Guru Maharaj to preach Krishna consciousness in the English language. So I came here to New York 1 year ago. Quote, I was not very much hopeful because it is a very difficult task. But because this culture is so opposed to the European and Western culture. I used to walk on 42nd Street near the cinema houses. When I first came, I had no money. I came by ship. So when I was on the ship seeing New York for the first time, I was thinking, why have I come here? I do not know what is the purpose, because how will the people accept this movement? They are differently educated. And as soon as I say, so my dear sir, you have to give up meat eating and illicit sex, and no intoxication and gambling, they will say, please go home. But I thought, let me try. I was practically just like a homeless man, but I had full faith that my Guru Maharaj was with me. I never lost this faith. If you accept Bhagavad Gita as it is, then you should know that Krishna is present before you. Excuse me. He's present before you in his words in the Bhagavad Gita. This is called spiritual realization. It is not mundane historical incidences. Quote, now I'm trying my level best to execute the order of my Guru Maharaj. Similarly, if you will also try your level best on the same principle, then it will go on. Same principle. It doesn't matter whether one is born in India or outside India. No, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Prithividhi Achi Yata Nagarati Gram. As many towns and villages are there, my name will be sung. He did not say it to make a farce. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, sometimes I'm very much criticized that I have foreigners as followers. The caste Brahmins in India, they are very much against me. But you may be a very learned scholar, or you may be a fool. It doesn't matter. You are under the laws of material nature. We have got this human form of life. It will be finished, as the cat's and dog's life is also finished. But if we try through the Guru and the Vaishnavas, the followers of Vishnu, that is Krishna, then we can achieve in this life full success, not failure. Like cats and dogs' life, that is the opportunity. The Swami looked out over his audience, quote, if you can't fast all day, then you can eat some sugar candy, he said. And he picked up his small African drum and began to chant. Jan looked over her shoulder at me and got up and came to the back of the room. How are you feeling? She asked me. Pretty terrible, I answered. I don't think I can make it. What the hell is sugar candy? Asked Charlie, the flute player, who was leaning against the wall next to me. Damned if I know, I said. This is about America. America, every other word is a curse word or something similar. People have, generally speaking, a very limited vocabulary. Hell, I don't know. Damned if I know. Maybe he means rock candy. Does it matter? Anything will do. The Swami said if we can't fast all day. Let's get some, he interrupted. I can't make it till midnight either. I feel sick. I'll go, Jan said. I don't feel that bad. I'll get it. I need some air anyway. Okay, you got money? Okay, go, but don't be long. We're dying in here. This is what we're thinking, we're dying. The people that smoke, if I don't get a cigarette, I'll die. They won't die. They'll die if they get the cigarette. But we're thinking, because of the pushings of the senses, we're thinking that we have no choice. But we do. We have the choice to go with the instructions of the spiritual master. It was an hour and a half later when she came back with 3 packets of lifesavers. Anybody know what lifesavers are? Aha. It's like Mentos, but it's got holes in the middle, and they're different flavors of basically sugar with flavoring. That's sugar candy, I asked. Charlie looked skeptical too. Well, it's sugar and it's candy, she shot back. They'd never heard of rock candy. That's the clear, crystal sugary stuff, I think. They said I'd have to go to Midtown and look around. They thought a place called Stover's on 53rd Street might have it, but I'm too weak to hunt for it. And a bus to Midtown is just too much today. It's hot out there. Here you go. Sitting cross-legged on the rug, I quietly broke open one of the lifesaver packs. I hope the person sitting in front of me obscured me from the Swami's view. I pretended I was scratching my face and eased a yellow, lemon-flavored one into my mouth as inconspicuously as possible. I passed a red one to Charlie, who did the same. The quote-unquote sugar candy perked us up a bit, and before I knew it, the afternoon had passed, and it was 7 o'clock. The heat had become bearable, and it was starting to get dark. We had been in the temple with the Swami for 12 hours straight. About 8:30, 2 Indian couples in their 30s arrived at the temple. They opened the door without knocking and sat down cross-legged on the floor as if they had been invited and were supposed to be there. The men were dressed in Western clothing, black pants and sports jackets, but the women wore brightly colored saris. From his seat at the head of the temple, the Swami smiled and nodded to them. They nodded back. The Swami said something loud to them in Hindi, and one of the men replied in an equally loud voice. So it's a bit like the Africans here. Even though you're standing right next to them, they're yelling at you like you're on the other side of the location. So that happens in Africa as well. We have chars and workers that come past our home in the morning, and they're yelling at each other, walking together, but they're yelling at each other like they want to speak to somebody on the other side of the block. Then, unexpectedly, the Swami turned to us. Quote, so I would like to invite the young devotees of Krishna present here to speak some of their realizations of Krishna consciousness. Ray, can you speak something about Krishna consciousness? What have you realized? Ray looked surprised and his face went white. After about half a minute and 3 loud throat clears, he said, well, I like philosophy, and I like the atmosphere too. I think I'd like to dedicate myself more to Krishna. I'm not the body, and heat and cold can't affect me like they used to. This chanting is a way of life. We're not the body, and materialism is not good for us. I think anyone who wants to get high can do it without drugs by chanting. Well, it makes you feel good and it's legal. That's what I like about it. Also, it doesn't cost anything. That's another good thing about it. He nodded his head, looking straight at the Swami, signaling that his speech was over. Then the Swami looked at Charlie. Mr. Charlie, speak something about your realizations of Krishna consciousness. After a long silence, Charlie swallowed and closed his eyes like the Swami did. He said, well, I'm not a very good speaker, but anyway, Krishna consciousness is, a way to be peaceful inside. You don't have to look for a place, outside yourself. You're not the body, so that's it. Yeah, you can be satisfied. Yeah, satisfied. To know you don't have to get, all worked up. To do something. He opened his eyes, looked around at the audience, then at the Swami, and then at the round picture of Radha and Krishna on the wall, and then back to the Swami. He then closed his eyes again. Quote, it's like being peaceful all the time, so chanting, does it. I think it'll work okay for anyone. Anyone who tries it. So we're not these bodies, that's what it is, So if everyone tries it, it works. You have to try it though. Don't be afraid, just try and you'll see, you'll know. It really works. And I think, well, that's it. He put his head down and looked at the floor. Miss Denise, you can speak something about Krishna consciousness? Me? Denise was about 16 and had been coming to the Swami's evening programs for the past week or so. She looked over her left shoulder at the Indian guests sitting on the rug. Well, they were expressionless. Well, if you chant, it's hard to stop. You shouldn't stop. It makes your thinking clearer, and you can even see better. I think. So if your heart is in it, you can chant every day and have everything you want. Inside, I guess it's hard at first, but you have to hear the Swamiji speak. You'll feel better, more at ease. Slowly, more comfortable. It's a nice way to spend free time instead of trying to do things when you don't know what's really going to happen. Like drugs and stuff. The Swami smiled at her. Thank you very much, he said. I'm thinking, please don't pick me. Please don't pick me. I would request our guests to speak. One of the Indian men smoothed his mustache and spoke in English with a thick Indian accent. We were walking down the street and looking in window and thought I was in India. So we walked in. We're in Indian Merchant Marines. I am captain. Our ship is Golconda. We have ship in New York. Pause. We can say some Gita shlokas, he said, like he was making a suggestion. The Swami raised his chin and said, so recite? Staring at the Swami, the man waited for a few seconds, looked at the ceiling, and then started singing verses. Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre, he sang, and he continued for several minutes, chanting what I thought was an impressive number of verses by heart. He sang the same melody for each verse. Being a musician, I took note of the melody. It was a tetrachord, the first four notes of a major scale. I thought of it as part of a tradition that I should be learning. Quote, his singing was melodious and heartfelt. It seemed to me as though a piece of India had suddenly been brought into our midst and was right there in the room between the Swami and these people. I realized for the first time how the philosophy the Swami was teaching was not just a philosophy, but was a culture. Krishna consciousness was not just the ideas of one person, the Swami, but was something greater. wasn't just about God and the spiritual world. It was a way of life that was embraced by an entire civilization. As I listened to the man sing, India seemed less mysterious and less unknown. And at that moment, I knew that I would go there. The man paused and looked at the Swami. Some of the devotees had turned around to stare at him. He resumed his chanting, and after about 5 more minutes, he nodded at the Swami and stopped. Swamiji replied, "Thank you very much," beaming at his visitors. I had forgotten all about my gnawing hunger and knew I would make it through the last few hours till midnight. The following day, Friday, September 9th, the Swami performed our initiation ceremony. Jan had decided she would get initiated too. So the two of us turned up together at the temple that evening. We were directed upstairs to the Swami's small apartment, where we were told the ceremony was to take place. The main room of the apartment where the Swami and his followers took their meals was already full of people. The Swami sat in the middle of the room in front of a small rectangular mound of soil, taken from the apartment building's small courtyard. Pieces of an orange crate had been cut into kindling and were piled up next to him. A small pot of melted golden ghee was on the floor by his side. To his right was a smaller altar, a box draped with a red and blue velvet cloth, upon which sat an El Greco-like picture, a photo of a painting. The figure in the picture looked like a Christian saint, complete with halo. I wasn't sure who he was. The Swami mentioned for the two of us to sit in front of him along with several of his core group and a few who were less involved like we were. I counted the number of initiates, 11, 10 men and Jan. I sat at the floor with Jan on my left and Carl on my right. Ray passed us each a string of large red beads, the japa beads he had bought for us the other day. "Begin chanting," the Swami requested, and the sound of the Hare Krishna mantra filled the small room. After a few moments, the Swami indicated we should stop. "Repeat the following mantra after me," he said. "Om." "Om," we replied. "Apavitra, apavitra, pavitro va, pavitro va." The Swami continued with the word-for-word chant for about 1 minute and then explained its meaning. Apavitra means unclean and pavitra means clean. So anyone who may be in whatever condition one may be, either unclean or clean, if that person remembers Krishna, who has lotus eyes, that person immediately becomes cleansed internally and externally. Now I will explain the meaning of this initiation ceremony. The initiation means purification. We're all impure in this material world, and therefore birth, death, old age, and disease have overcome us. So in order to overcome these miseries, we must voluntarily accept some tapasya, some sacrifice, some rules and regulations. Sorry. Why do we need to accept a spiritual master? To accept a spiritual master is not a hobby. One who is interested in hearing about their transcendental subject matter. Ramante yogina anante. The unlimited, infinite subject matter. For him, a spiritual master is needed. Not for all. So we must accept a spiritual master who can teach us about God. And who is such a person? That also is stated in the Upanishads. It is said, Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. The spiritual master must come down in disciplic succession, and as a result of such authorized succession, must be fully, firmly convinced in Brahman. Quote, and the student must surrender himself to the spiritual master for instruction. Why? Because spiritual master is representative of God. Spiritual master is supposed to spread God consciousness, Krishna consciousness, make everyone Krishna conscious. The disciple should respect the spiritual master as much as God himself, because he is the most confidential servant of God. Not that the spiritual master is God, no, but he is to be respected as such because he gives us the words of the disciplic succession, the words of God. Quote, I knew Ray had gotten things a bit wrong, I thought, reassured that my understanding of the Swami's role had been correct. So this initiation is called Harinam initiation, first initiation. So Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhakti Siddhanta, had incorporated a lot of the regulations passed in the traditional Indian culture. He had accepted them and refined them, and then Srila Prabhupada was expanding upon them in his own initiation ceremony. The spiritual master gives the disciple Hari Nam, the Hare Krishna mantra, to chant and thus be purified. Later, some of you may receive second initiation, Brahman initiation, and another mantra is given then. So along with chanting Hare Krishna, you must follow some rules and regulations. If we want to purify ourselves, then 4 principles must be followed. The principles are no illicit sex life, no intoxication, no meat eating, and no gambling. These 4 things are very prominent everywhere in Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel. But anyone indulging in these 4 things, they cannot imagine where they are, who is God, and how they will be free from this conditional life. So this is purificatory process. Initiation means beginning of your purificatory process. And if we are serious about purification, then we must follow these 4 principles. The Swami paused for a moment, eyeing us all carefully to let us absorb his instructions. Now, he said, I will give spiritual names, Sanskrit names. When we give some spiritual name, that name is the name of Krishna, and it is followed by Das or Dasi, man or woman. Das means servant of, so you please take your beads. You all have 108 beads? Jan and I shot a look over at Ray, who we assumed had strung up our beads. He nodded at us. We looked back at the Swami and nodded to him. Good. So we should chant the whole Hare Krishna mantra on each bead. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That is 1 round. And you must chant 16 rounds of Hare Krishna mantra on the beads every day. Yes. Each of you now please pass beads to me, 1 at a time. Ray was sitting closest to the Swami. He took off his beads from around his neck and gave them to the Swami. Now we will all chant 1 round, Swami said. When we finished 1 round, the Swami said, so Ray, your spiritual name is Rai Ram Das. Smiling, he handed Ray back his set of large red beads. Next beads, Carl gave his set to the Swami, and we chanted another round. Carl, your new name is Karlapati Das. One by one, each initiate passed their beads to the Swami, who chanted on them and then gave new name. Finally, it was my turn. I handed my string of beads to the Swami and we began chanting again. The Swami fingered each bead as he chanted the mantra. So, Mr. Michael, he said, when he had finished another round, your spiritual name is Mukunda Das Adhikari. Mukunda is a name of Krishna meaning giver of liberation. Jan, you please now give me your beads. We chanted another round, and the servant gave Jan, and the Swami gave Jan her name. Your spiritual name is Janaki Devi Dasi. That is the name of Lord Ram's consort Sita, the daughter of one King Janak. He handed Jan her beads. Now you please each touch your beads to the feet of Lord Chaitanya. I remembered the Swami mentioning Chaitanya before, but I couldn't remember exactly in what context. Ray gestured toward the small altar. I followed the others and touched my large red beads to the feet of the figure in the picture, and then took my seat once again. The Swamiji lit a whole handful of incense sticks and placed them in regular intervals around the earthen mound. As the fragrant smoke wafted through the small room, he took small pinches of colored powder and made crisscross lines over the mound. Then, arranging the smallest of the wooden sticks in a little pyramid on top of the mound, he lit a fire in which he filled larger and larger pieces of the orange crate. He began to chant mantras word for word in a loud, deep voice, and we repeated each word after him. So it's almost still a habit for devotees to take wooden vegetable crates and break them up for initiation. So we don't generally have a lot of lumber or timber laying around. So that's what ends up being part of the yajna paraphernalia. And the flames were getting higher. This was unlike any sacrament I'd ever been given part of. I remembered the rituals in the synagogue and how hollow, inexplicable, and pointless I found them. No one ever tried to explain to me the meaning behind them. They didn't seem to know why they were taking part either. This wasn't that much different in the sense that I still didn't know very much about what was going on. What was different was that I knew that the Swami knew. This somehow made the ceremony seem more genuine. The room's one window was closed, and the room was gradually filling with smoke. Although my eyes were watering, I was mesmerized by the ceremony. It was more than just the enthralling spectacle of having a fire burning on the floor in the middle of an apartment. This ritual felt sacred. I'd gone into the initiation casually, but this had become more than an informal, relaxed event. It was more like a change from one life to another, an oath to follow, a philosophy to accept a particular person as my teacher for life. I had crossed the Rubicon. My guide on the journey was the Swami, this person who had become a friend, but was still a teacher. I liked him and I trusted him because, unlike the other people of the cloth that I had met, he lived his life by the philosophy he spoke. I felt that the ceremony was between him and each of the initiates on a personal level. Unlike the Western religious rituals I had attended, this one was not a big affair. There was no ornate high ceiling, pews, organs, stained glass, choirs, or large congregation made up of family and friends. Here, in this modest, austere setting, the ceremony was about the agreement made between him and me, the sealing of a commitment and sacrament that was not dependent on anyone or anything else. I felt happy that I was now officially part of the Swami's mission, and although he looked solemn as he concluded their ceremony, I could sense that he, too, was happy. The day for our initiation, on the day, Janaki's sister Joan flew in from Oregon for our wedding. She was the only member of either of our families to attend. On the day of the wedding, Janaki and a handful of others decorated the Swami's apartment with ornaments made of leaves, which were strung from the upper corners of the room. As they decorated, the Swami moved around the kitchen preparing our wedding feast. He had Joan, his sole assistant, busily engaged in rolling and folding potato pastries. So this Joan, yes, is no other than Jamuna Dasi, uh, who became a great servant of Srila Prabhupada, one of the best cooks in our movement, and the author of a world-class leading cookbook, Indian Vegetarian Cooking. So I'm very happy that Mukunda and Janika are today becoming married, Swami said. Actually, I am a sannyasi, retired from married life. It is not the business of sannyasi to take part in marriage ceremony, but in this country, just to save my students from sinful activities, I am personally taking interest. I see that here in New York, most of the boys' girls, they're keeping the boyfriend and girlfriend. So I'm requesting all my students that if you want to make progress in spiritual life, you have to refrain from 4 kinds of sinful activity. Illicit sex life, first. Second, non-vegetarian diet. Third, intoxication. Fourth, gambling. Unless one is free from these 4 principal activities, one cannot make progress in spiritual life. According to our Vaishnava principles, marriage is allowed because there is male, there is female. Why they should not unite? This is proper. The Swami turns his attention from the audience towards us. Quote, I request that you live happily together, he said. Please do everything in relationship with Krishna. Live a pure life and be happy in this life and next life. Now, you all please chant Hare Krishna. The room once again filled with the sound of the mantra while the Swami lit the fire. Once it had begun to crackle, he said, Janaki, please repeat. Quote, Mukunda, I agree to serve you throughout my life. Mukunda, I agree to serve you throughout my life, she said. Mukunda, you say, Janaki, I accept you as my wife and will take charge of your life in all conditions. Janaki, I accept you as my wife and will take charge of you in all conditions. Now you each exchange garlands. Yes. Now Mukunda, you cover her head with her sari. And now you change places. You come to this side, you go to that side. Good. Now you are husband and wife. The Swami began chanting mantras and ladling ghee into the fire as he had for our initiation. For Janaki and me, this was an exciting way to formally begin our married life without the materialistic trappings that were usually part of Western weddings. Getting married, sitting in front of a blazing fire on the floor of a New York apartment, with only a few friends and without our families, felt alternative, unique, and countercultural, and well, just right. So the marriage ceremonies have got a little more intricate. Of course, the Hindu weddings go on for days and days. But Prabhupada's his initiation ceremony and his marriage ceremonies were basically fairly brief. The feast the Swami prepared was awe-inspiring. Spicy rice with chunks of homemade cheese and red peppers, sweet and sour dal, richly spiced chickpea stew, curried potatoes with peas and eggplant, dumplings in yogurt sauce sprinkled with coriander leaves and freshly ground spices, whole wheat fried flatbreads, deep fried cauliflower fritters, pakoras, flaky potato pastries, chunky tomato chutney, spongy paneer globes floating in a sauce of condensed milk, squares of milk fudge. We sat with our guests in rows on the floor of his apartment, amazed as dish after dish emerged from the kitchen. Several of our macrobiotic guests threw caution to the wind and abandoned themselves to the Swami's culinary delights. This stuff is just too good to resist, an old friend from my music past exclaimed, as the Swami appeared with a bowl of sweet condensed saffron yogurt. I had to agree. Jan and I had never seen or tasted anything like this before, and we felt immensely grateful to the Swami for going through so much trouble for us. After the feast, we headed back to our loft to continue the festivities with about 10 people who had attended the ceremony. The newly initiated Hayagriva, formerly Howard, loudly sang Indian mantras interspersed with recitations of Wordsworth and Longfellow, the poets he taught when he was an English professor in Ohio. Joan told us about her cooking experience with the Swami. He's very friendly, isn't he? She said. When I arrived to help him cook, he gave me these lemon crackers and a chilled yogurt drink, and he kept telling me to wash my hands. Yeah, the Swami's always very clean, I said. He says being clean is part of being a devotee of Krishna. Well, he kept noticing I was touching my mouth and he'd ask me to wash my hands every time. I didn't even realize I was doing it. He did so many things at once and all so quickly. We turned on the TV and watched Allen Ginsberg being interviewed by an uptight-looking reporter. To our amazement, after a few minutes of questions, he sat down and began chanting the Hare Krishna mantra to the accompaniment of a small harmonium. It seemed an auspicious conclusion to our day. Despite the memorable quality of our wedding and the Swami's insistence that we never separate, there was a nagging feeling of impermanence about our marriage. Janaki was troubled by the Swami's suggestion that devotees should ultimately renounce their marriage partners and dedicate themselves 100% to God. She raised the issue once with me one afternoon a few days after the wedding as we walked down Columbus Street toward Delancey Street Bridge. This morning I asked the Swami if you would have to become a Swami someday, she said. He renounced his wife and grown-up children to become a man of God. So I wanted to know if he thought you would have to do that too. What did he say? He just laughed and said yes. It seemed like he was joking with me. You don't look very happy about it, I said. Well, how could I be? I don't think it's a laughing matter, actually. I mean, if we made a vow not to ever separate, how am I supposed to understand that one day you're supposed to become a monk? What will happen to me? Does the Swami think that our marriage won't work out, or what? I don't really know very much about all that sannyasi stuff, I admitted. Parts of the Vedic philosophy seem kind of contradictory to me. That's not very helpful. I mean, this Krishna thing was your thing to begin with, and I want to know how it's going to affect me in the future. I just don't know, Janaki, I said. The whole idea of becoming a renunciate is pretty hard to figure out, however I look at it. But we're together in this now. We're married and initiated. And you've been so supportive, even when I was going to have to go to jail for being a drug dealer. I think Krishna consciousness is changing our lives, but renunciation isn't part of anything that I can see. Hare Krishna. Any comments, questions? Yes, Baruch?
The sannyasis in Korea or immediate family, do they do marriages? Or is that specifically something ISKCON Prabhupada did?
I don't know. I don't know. Prabhupada had to do it because there was no one else, and that he explained. But in India, there would obviously be other people that could do. He actually performed the yajna, Srila Prabhupada, but if a sannyasi wanted to attend the wedding for the benefit of their disciples, then they could do that uh, if they wanted. Or if I've seen in Mayapur, some devotees have gotten married and their gurus were invited, and they would come for some of the ceremony at least to bless and then go away. But they didn't do the yajna. There was always be a priest or someone like that who could do. So, yeah, I don't think the Gaudiya Math sannyasis would, they're not required to do so, so they probably wouldn't do so. Anyone else? Judy Mandala. Yes.
Appreciate, like in the beginning of the reading, when Srila Prabhupada was encouraging the guests, like Charlie and to give a realization, and even though they like experience in Krishna consciousness, who they actually, and I think that's something that you also do, that you encourage us to actually our realizations and our questions or doubts and put forward.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's also we learn quite a lot, like from personal experiences, kind of different points and just what's on their heart. I just wanted to appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, Srila Prabhupada's application of Krishna consciousness, transplanting Krishna consciousness from India, where the Vedic culture was predominantly the culture, to the West, where it was predominantly not. And I don't know anyone who's had the experience of transplanting flowers and trees and other things. There are a lot of different aspects you have to attend to make sure that it doesn't die. So Prabhupada had to learn. Of course, he was expert, but he still had to learn the ground rules in America. He couldn't say that boys and girls should be separate. And he understood the situation, and therefore he knew that he would have to make some special conditions for Krishna consciousness to flourish in the West. And one of the main ones was uh, boys and girls, boys and girls. So he mentioned here that, and many devotees, they came as couples. We were hearing yesterday, Dayananda and Nandarani. They joined in San Francisco. He had just come out of the Air Force, and they came together like that. So Prabhupada didn't separate them. He got them married. So he understood this is the situation, even though uh, uh, being married makes life a lot more complicated. He didn't try to go against the grain of Western culture in order to preach. He understood what the situations were and how to apply it in a very special way that worked. And when he was criticized, Prabhupada was criticized a lot by his godbrothers and others in India that he was spoiling Hinduism. You're ruining a religion. You're ruining our religion. You can ruin a lot of things. You can ruin the milk on the stove, or you can ruin this. But ruin a religion, that's pretty heavy duty. And there are people, even Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, when he fought against the Smartas, they collected 50,000 rupees. 50,000 rupees is a lot of money now. And 100 years ago, that was a fortune. And they said, we're going to kill this guy. They gave the money to the police chief. We're going to kill him. And you don't do anything. So people get pretty upset when you're ruining their religion. But Prabhupada had to preach. And Bhakti Siddhanta and Srila Bhakti Vinod, they preached according to Shastra to show that Krishna consciousness is not dependent on any materialistic situation. And therefore we have the International Society for Krishna Consciousness spread all over the world. And Western devotees have been a big part of the development of Krishna consciousness all over the world, and even in India. Even in India. So Prabhupada was expert. He knew he had to make certain changes, but they were, as Rupa Goswami mentions, they were details of Krishna consciousness, not the essence of Krishna consciousness. The essence of Krishna consciousness is chanting Hare Krishna and serving Krishna, surrendering to Krishna. But Prabhupada was able to make adjustments in order that it could be applied to the West, Krishna consciousness, and it's still flourishing. And in that way, things are going on. Yes.
So I was just thinking how it's necessary to adjust to time, place, and circumstance. Some of the example, some of the Indian one congregation that comes here, they know it's part of the culture. Men and women don't just talk freely. Or even when you go to the grounds, and it's taken as part of the culture. I've even seen some women that look at you as if you're crazy if you just speak to them. But in the West, if we did that, we just won't preach.
Yeah.
You have to go to a forest, which we don't.
Well, it's interesting. I was on the plane. I was flying into Calcutta from Dubai, and it was in the middle section of the plane, and beside me there was an older lady and an older man, Indian couple. They looked like at least in their 60s, and you would have thought they were traditional people. But the Maharaji, when they came around, said, "Can I have some wine? Can I have some red wine?" And then the man wanted gin. He wanted gin. So I'm thinking, wow, these guys are really far gone. They're in their 60s, which means they must have been doing this for a while. And of course, when they asked for the food, it was definitely non-veg. It was the mutton curry, the sheep's the sheep's curry. So I was a little distressed that we're seeing that so many people, that Indian Krishna consciousness in India is growing, but still there's a path, and some people are going in the wrong direction. There's the road here. Of course, it's a two-way road, and you can go one way or you can go the other way. So people, unfortunately, and even there's a verse in the Bhagavatam that says that people who are born in India who don't have, who don't take advantage of that opportunity, that wonderful opportunity of being born in the holy land of Bharat, it says they are to be pitied by the pitiable. Pitied by the pitiable. So this we see, of course, people have done this because of bad examples from their parents and friends and family. But they unfortunately didn't check to see how their lives would be ruined by changing to this Western way of living. So that's still there, but we're trying to show people that life will increase and improve as one begins to follow carefully the principles of Krishna consciousness and the directions of the spiritual master. So those things are very important. Any other points? Yes.
And early what is the reading about Janmashtami, the celebration of Janmashtami, and you said that we should be celebrating sort of a new on a bigger scale and Janmashtami, like because the Italians must be something like that. And but with the within China, um, I just like saying like in Bengal, like Rosichan is very is not one known, but in other parts in the is not known. And it's kind of like it's like a lot of the bodies in like Bengal, but seems like the other parts of India they don't know Rosichan. They know Krishna, but
Yeah. Well, in that way, sometimes Krishna consciousness is a bit regional, because in the North India, then the Vaishnavas are mostly devotees of Lord Ramachandra. And in the South, they can be, of course, there's big, huge temples at Tirupati, and there's Lord Venkateshwar. There are other deities that are more prominent. We're fortunate because Srila Prabhupada came from Bengal, and therefore we're more affiliated and we understand more. We have more information about Lord Chaitanya. So that's our good fortune, because, as mentioned, he's the most merciful incarnation, and he brought this chanting. He brought the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, which is the Yuga Dharma, and due to his participation in bringing that Yuga Dharma, it is effectively, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, influenced the entire world. So it's still happening. We're very fortunate here, actually, in Cape Town, because we have Sri Sri Nitai Mahaprachandra, and We don't have anybody else, so we don't have a choice but to worship Lord Chaitanya. So that's our good fortune, actually, because we won't be forgetting Nitai Mahaprachanda. So we have that opportunity because there are worshipable lords. Whereas if a temple has other deities, then the focus will change, which is fine. But we're lucky here in that our focus can always be on Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Before the deities came, that was our deity on the wall behind you. That Panchatattva that was on the altar there, and we worship Panchatattva, which is also worshiping Lord Chaitanya and his associates. And now we have Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda in their three-dimensional forms, which makes it easier, of course, and also then they can be dressed and bathed and worshipped and fed. So there's an opportunity for more intimate service than just putting a garland around a photograph, which was also devotional. But we have the opportunity now to serve, and different devotees have that opportunity. And as one becomes more experienced in Krishna consciousness and more dedicated, then one can actually personally serve the deity and touch the deity, bathe the deity, and develop a personal relationship with the deity. That's one thing that Prabhupada did in Los Angeles. He installed the deity. And then he told the devotees, you do this and this and this. You get up in the morning and I think it was small deities, you put them on the altar, and then you have arti, and then you cook and you offer, and then you bathe and dress. You do these things. And Prabhupada didn't even have to tell people. They knew there's a difference here. That I'm working with someone. That I'm dealing with a person, with a personality. That's reciprocating. There's a reciprocation with the deity. And this you cannot really explain to someone who's not familiar with deity worship. But if the deities were just statues, you wouldn't get so many instances around the world where the deities' clothes don't fit anymore. Because the devotees are worshiping so nicely and the cooks are cooking so nicely and offering, then the deities' clothes don't fit anymore. Appreciating. So those things, when you get the opportunity to work closely and carefully with the deity, everywhere, and he's in everyone's heart, but he's also here on the altar. So you can serve him, you can pray to him, you can think of him or them, and in that way your consciences can become purified. So that's one of the wonders that Srila Prabhupada also introduced. Many people can't take that step, especially people who are of Islamic persuasion. Don't go there with them. Even chanting God's names is a toughie for them because they think God only has one name, Allah Akbar. They don't understand that God can have many names. Why can't I have many names? I have many names. Children can call me Pita. My wife can call me Honey. And then I have my more formal names. Everyone has multiple names according to the relationships they have with others. So, but some cults and ideas don't accept that God can have that kind of variety. But we understand that He's completely independent. He is abhigya, which means He knows everything, and swarat means He's completely independent. He's not governed by any of our rules or our ideas or our strictures or prohibitions. He's completely free. So we have the opportunity, by Prabhupada's grace and by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, to have access to a very wonderful the chanting and serving and appreciate course on the 5 principal items. Sadhu Sangha, Nama Kirtana, Bhagavat Shravan, Mathura Vasa, Sri Murtira, Shradaya Sevan. So, Sadhu Sangha, association with devotees, Nama Kirtana, chanting Hare Krishna, Bhagavat Shravan, hearing Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, living in a holy place, Mathura Vasa. So here's a holy place. Mathura Vasa, Sri Murtira, the Murti, served with Shradaya, faith and devotion. So those are the, out of 64, those are the 5 primary. So we can, in the course of our day, we can choose activities that will keep us within the realm of those 5 prescriptions, and we'll make spiritual progress. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki, Sri Sri Nitai Maya Prachandra ki, Sri Gaur Purnima Maha Mahotsava ki, Thai Gaur Premanandi. Hare Krishna.